A big hello and welcome. It's Kate from Zen Stitching, and I'm so excited to be joining you today with Paula Hartmann, who is one of our Making Zen artists. Paula, a big hello and welcome. I'm so glad to be
Oh,
chatting with you today.
thank you so much for inviting me. It's lovely to actually see you in person now because there were like emails back and forth, but now I actually
Yes.
talk to you. That's great.
I know it's always so nice to be able to see, put a name to a face. And what I really like about this opportunity is to put a name to a face to an artist and artworks as well, which I always think is wonderful because, quite often on Instagram or on websites, we see these beautiful artworks and we see the face, but it's so nice to know the personality and the person behind what makes it tick.
I agree. I often, when I like somebody's art and then I meet them in person, then I like the art even more because I'm like, wow, this is just like a extension of their personality often, you know?
Yeah, it
It's just like
really is.
fits so when you meet them, like it's just like, oh wow, yeah, that is their character. For some reason, the artwork is like a part of them, you know?
It is. It's so true, actually, isn't it? You kind of the artwork becomes more meaningful or has, yeah, something added to it. I don't even know how to put that into words right now.
Yeah, yeah. If somebody makes like delicate art, and they usually are very like delicate and kind, or if they're making really bold art, then they're like very brave and like it's just like the personality of the artwork usually corresponds with the personality of the person, which I find
Mm.
it's something that I recognized over time, you know, every time I met an artist, I was like, oh yeah, there's some relationship with it.
I love thinking about that, and that is a really nice natural kind of integration to what I can see behind you, which are your artworks.
Yeah.
And one of the ways that you like to describe yourself is, or your artworks, I should say, is kinetic and moving. So would you say that it's something that is also part of your personality too?
Yeah, it's funny. I used to be actually a dance teacher. So, and it's wild. I know, but I loved moving as a child a lot. I was also drawing a lot as a kid, but I loved dancing. And then I got into dancing. I studied dance and didn't even really pursue anything in the visual art area. But then after my son was born, I was crafting with him and I got really inspired by our little craft sessions. And then I got really into kinetic art. And now when I look back, I'm like, yeah, that kind of fits so well to me. I'm always like very intrigued by anything that like moves or, yeah,
Yeah.
it is
Oh,
a big part of my life, I would say. Mhm.
that is so beautiful. That connection there, it gives me goosebumps thinking that
Oh,
you were a dancer and then you've gone from the physical movement to creating three-dimensional objects that move and dance in space. That is just so poetic.
I know. And I always thought also like about, I, I'm not really even so into creating like an actual product, but more like an experience. And that's why I think I also like teaching and workshops because you get together with other people and it's more like an experience, creating together. And that's also like when I make like art for like an installation, it's more about not buying the actual piece, but experiencing it, you know? And that's the same with
Absolutely.
a choreography. You know, when you see like a dancer, you go home and you've experienced something, and it's more about that than taking something physical with you. Yeah.
Yes, yes, which you, of course, can't when you're, watching a dance or theatre. You kind of just take the experience and the feelings with you.
Hmm.
Oh, I do love that.
But that's
And
your philosophy too, right?
yes,
Like you create like a good feeling when you're creating,
yes, I
like it
do.
calms you down, or
That's really interesting that you should say that because there is the Zen stitching side of me, which is all about the stitching and slowing down and being mindful and being present and just all the goodness that all of those things bring.
Mm-hmm.
There's also the side of me where I'm very interested in movement in a sense of capturing it
Mm-hmm.
on film. So I love um, working with projection and creating videos and projecting it and shadows and
Oh, I
that
love
kind of
shadows.
thing. And I,
Yeah.
mm.
So love that.
Well, shadows are just cool, aren't they?
Oh, I have to check out your projections. Do you have them online?
I do, I do.
Oh,
So
I haven't even checked that out.
kateward.com.au, there's
Oh.
probably some stuff there I think that you could see. And I'm very much into the experience where you have to be there and you have
Hmm.
to, sometimes you work through the projections, sometimes you're
Yes.
looking at it, there's the audio. Yeah, it's the experience itself rather than the actual product. So
Mm-hmm. Same.
mm, mm. And I could just envisage, because looking at your installation behind you, it makes me think of Chihuly's Glassworks, for example, who the American glass artist who quite often some of his installations are a room full of brightly colored, twisted glass, and you kind of, it's almost like being in a reef, for example, with the shapes and the color and the movement of it. And it reminds me of your artwork as well.
Oh, really? I have
Yeah,
to check them out. Kind of
yeah,
like, it sounds a bit like being in a kaleidoscope or something.
that kind of idea. Yes, Dale Chihuly is his name,
Dale
and
Chihuly.
he does
I'm
some
gonna write
really
that down.
cool blown glass, which kind of pushes your idea of blown glasswork. And yeah, they're
Oh,
just beautiful. Beautiful
I love
colors and
I love stained glass. I love that.
yeah, yeah, it
Hmm.
is. It's so great and so colorful. And I'd love to know a little bit more. So you said you started with the dance, you were crafting with your son, and then you've moved into the kinetic sculptures. I'd
Yeah.
love to know a little bit more about how you reached that point, because I understand, is it a Polish art form of
Yeah, it
painting?
started with, yeah, you're right. Like it started with me seeing a Polish paper mobile in a window here in Toronto in a craft store. It was like a paper store. And I was like, I've never seen anything like that before. And it was moving and it was like really big and so delicately made. Like it's made out of so many different pieces. And I was just mesmerized. And I was walking into the store and I asked the owner, like, who made this? Who's the artist? And he said, I made it. And I said, you need to teach me how to do this. And then he said, like, I'm sorry, but I'm so busy. I'm a business owner. I can't. And then I remember I walked home and then I Googled and I was like, what is this art form? And it was like almost like love at first sight. And then I slowly, I don't know, got into it and researched about it. It was basically, I kind of like taught myself because there was really no teachers. There was nobody even online teaching it
Mm.
or nobody. I think I'm still actually the only person in Canada who teaches it,
Yes,
which
I
is
have.
wild.
It is, and it is so cool. It's a new art form for me, and I'd really love to know a bit more about it. Is there much in the history of the art form, or
Yeah.
is it created for particular events?
Yeah, so the original Polish mobiles that I started with that sometimes look like a chandelier almost, or sometimes geometric pieces as well. Um, so it dates back to the 1850s. That's what I found out, where like Polish women would come together for like, let's say, before Christmas or Easter, and they would all gather around a table, like all the women of a household, and they would, out of scraps or just like straw that they would gather from the fields, they would make these mobiles out of paper or straw or thread, anything that they could find. Um, and then apparently, it's the history says they became more elaborate over time,
Mm.
and they were used for like celebratory events, also like weddings or when a child was born, to hang in the room and to be like a reminder of like the celebration, or like also even in the Polish history, straw that was used has actually like a protective property. So they say that it wards off evil spirits. So they would hang it over a baby's crib to ward off like evil spirits. And
Mm.
it's like a very like an old tradition. And I was like so intrigued by that. And I love just making things out of things I find at home or like just everyday materials. And that was kind of like the whole point of these chandeliers as well. Um, yeah, and that's how it started. And then I became really interested in kinetic art in general. So also Alexander Calder.
Mm.
These mobiles are more like his style, where he uses like these balancing points to balance out mobiles. But all of it was like very much anything that is like in space, moving, colors, shapes, was really interesting to me.
Yeah. Oh, how fun to take the craft and the history and combine it with, movement and I guess contemporary art, taking a
Yeah.
traditional art form and moving it into the contemporary sphere. I really love when moments like that happen where you can be
Hmm.
progressing the paper art side of things, or art of paper is probably a better way of describing it.
Yeah. At some point, I was even like, you know, like combining. This is kind of like a Polish way to make like a paper pom pom. And I was combining it with the contemporary style of like these balancing mobiles. And then I was like, am I stealing like something from like the old? Am I allowed to do that? Because these old folk traditions are, sometimes I wonder, is it okay to, take like an old craft and turn it into something completely new that it has never been? Or am I like stealing somehow? Or, there's like also a bit of a reverence with that. Like, how far can I
Mm.
go? How far
Mm.
can I adapt? But in general, I'm like, I I think it's great to just like mix art forms and create completely new things. I think that's our creativity, just like having fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know what you mean. They are questions that we ask ourselves with relevance and like you say, is it okay to be pushing the art form in ways that maybe traditionally it wouldn't have been done? And
Hmm.
I do think, because there is the history of it, but bringing it into the contemporary realm, you're doing both, because
Mm.
you're sharing this wonderful tradition of the paper making and the paper crafts, but you're also making it relevant to today. So people are going to be
Hmm.
diving in, seeing what you create and thinking, wow, this is amazing, how beautiful. And then knowing more about the backstory as well, which
Yeah.
enriches it too. So I think it kind of does a bit of both, I would say.
Yeah, I would say so too. I think it's like so it doesn't die away, because I think there's a lot of people who they don't even know that tradition anymore. So it's by kind of like keeping it alive, even in a different way, people will remember it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Exactly. Yes, and I think that's the beauty of creativity is we're always reinventing and reinterpreting anything to
Hmm.
make it current and relevant. I mean, even fashion of clothes, if you think about it, what was relevant 100 years ago is very different to today. But we
Yeah.
still borrow from the different kind of patterns, shapes, colors, and textures. They just
Yeah.
different.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I love actually, and now it feels like we've come to a point in history where everything just like blends in.
Mm.
Sometimes I wonder, is that good? Is that not? Because the 30s had their style and the 40s and the 50s, and now it seems like, is there even still a style, or are we just like mixing, matching everything together,
Mm.
which is also fun.
That's a good point. I think
Yeah.
sometimes when you're in the thick of it, it's really hard to know. So
Yeah.
you
Who
know, you
knows?
have to wait 10 years and you'll be like, oh, that was the such and such time.
Exactly. Maybe in 20 years we look back and I'm like, yeah, yeah, that was the time.
Yeah, that's right. And then you'll be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I ever wore such and such, like what was it, stonewashed
Yeah,
denim from the 80s, which was so cool back then. And I
I
think it's cool
know.
again now for some.
And it comes back. It's turning cringe and then it's like all of a sudden not cringe anymore and it's very cool all of a sudden again.
Yeah, that's it. Exactly. And art kind of has those same movements too, doesn't it? Like something is
Yeah.
very fashionable and in vogue and then it'll move on and be something else. So it's yeah, I think it's kind of where we're interested in, isn't it? Where the interests lie.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And Paula, with your creativity and your artworks that you create, I'm curious to know how you approach things. So you say that you kind of didn't start out in life thinking I'm going to be an artist. It
Hmm.
was one of those natural progressions. And so, do you have? I'd love to hear a little bit more about your creative practice on a daily basis.
Yeah, sure. I just go, usually I try to pay really good attention to what makes me feel joyful. I think that's kind of like the first step in my process is just paying attention around me is like, oh, there's a color that I like, or oh, this shape, something, it does something to me, or a composition of colors or something, and I'm like intrigued by it, and then sometimes I take photos of it or make a little sketch, or and then sometimes these things can just like be in my journal for weeks or months or even years, and then they come up again. Sometimes it doesn't take that long, but it can happen like that. um, and I I try it. It's not sometimes, it's not easy often, like it's not always easy, but like I try to experiment and force myself to create really ugly things. Like I sometimes have like weeks where I make like little weird things all day. Like I don't even know how to describe it, like a little tiny sculpture or um and I'm just experimenting with things like creating a shape or so. And sometimes, like out of maybe 20 experiments, all of a sudden something is like, oh, this is kind of interesting. And I would like to explore that more. And then I go into it a little deeper. And then it can take another few months for it, for maybe a prototype to emerge. And then once one prototype is maybe done, I'm like, oh, I would like to make this into an installation or so. But it's very it takes a long time.
Mm.
Uh, and sometimes I'm looking back, like the first idea for like a mobile I had, um, sometimes I have visions like years before something actually happens, it's very weird, very strange.
Well, that's interesting. So interesting and so much in there. So you say you like to do ugly art.
Yeah, I
Is
like
it?
to experiment, like very childish art, like, like I try to be a kid for a day, and then I try to just make weird shapes. Or sometimes I also work with mediums that I'm not working currently with. Like most of my art is like made with paper. But for
Mm.
example, when I started making these wire mobiles, I've never worked with wire before. So I all of a sudden made these weird wire sculptures that were completely made out of wire, and they were like looked like a weird ball out of wire. And I was like, oh, I like this. I like wire. All of a sudden, I like to play with this material more, and that's how actually these came to be after an experimental phase of just making weird things out of wire and pom poms.
Yes.
and beads. I should have prepared, like I could have showed you like a weird sculpture that I made before these happened. They were looks very different.
Mm.
And then that kind of created this. And I don't know how this happens sometimes, but
Oh,
and then I look at artwork, for example, even like 2D works like paintings, and then I'm like, oh, and then when I made these sculptures, I was like, oh, this reminds me of these paintings that I looked at the same time I was making these weird wire sculptures. So it all kind of comes together.
yeah.
But it's mostly inspired by joy, like what kind of makes my eyes go wider, or what makes my heart skip a beat, or
Mm.
where do I feel like all of a sudden like a very like an aliveness or so.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
that's where I go into a little deeper then.
I'm totally fascinated, and would love to know more. So you say you kind of set out to just pretty much play, so to speak. You know,
Hmm. Yeah.
there's no pressure. So you're just kind of playing with shapes,
Hmm.
and just having fun through the process. And then through that enjoyment and, like you say, where it sparks joy and of interest and makes your heart
Hmm.
sing, that's kind of where you follow your interest. So do you are they like, do you say, okay, I'm going to set aside an hour today to
Mm.
play, or is it just like, oh, I've got 5 minutes spare, I think I'll go over here and start playing, like fiddling with all of my bits and pieces? How does your
Yeah.
creative area or space happen?
I I wish I was a little bit more consistent.
I
I
think we all are.
think because like I'm like, oh, I want to always create balance with my mobiles, but then
Mm.
in my real life, sometimes it's like completely out of balance. Like I uh, I play for 3 weeks and I create like 100 weird pieces, and then I don't create for 3 months, or I do create, but like I'm not playing anymore. I'm just like creating like mobiles like this or so, and I know already what I want, but then there's no more playing. It's just like, oh yeah, I found my thing, and then I'm going to work on that. So yeah, I wish there was like a daily like practice, but there isn't really. Like
Mm.
I try to make a daily habit of, for example, journaling and sketching a little bit.
Mm.
And uh, usually when I put time aside to work on something, I'm like, okay, today I'm just going to do an hour. Usually this hour turns into 5. And then I'm sitting like in the night at 1 a.m. I'm still doing this because once I start, usually I can't stop often.
Mm. Mm. Oh, that's right. Well,
But
it's so
yeah,
much fun.
yeah, but I wish sometimes I would just be like, okay, 30 minutes today and then 30 minutes tomorrow. And so I'm working on that. But lately I've been a bit distracted by, all the other things that you have to do as an artist, like applying for projects and um, stuff
Yes.
like that, like
Yes.
the
The
organizational parts.
admin
Yeah,
side of things,
the
which
admin side.
takes a lot of time. And it's true
Yeah,
though. And I think as much as it's wonderful to have a daily creative practice, I think sometimes we've got to embrace our different ways of being creative, like you
yeah,
do have these moments of, focused creation, and you're playing and you're experimenting, and then you've worked through that, and then you're kind of in the making mode where you're making, like if you've made a prototype and you're then making the bigger version, so you then the making side of things. And I think sometimes if you then need to have that space
hmm,
afterwards to just let it all gestate and rest, and
totally.
you know
Sometimes don't do anything for weeks. Like I just go and work on my computer or go out in nature or journal or dance. I think that's important, though, to stay inspired, I think.
Yeah.
Like when I was in Nova Scotia this summer, I was literally doing nothing other than looking at the sea and mm, spending
Just,
time with my family and
yeah,
going to different places, looking at the nature. And who knows what comes from that? Sometimes it will inform maybe something
I
that
think
comes
so.
out later.
Yeah, yeah. I think those times, even though we feel like they're not being creative, like in a physical sense, they're
Hmm.
feeding they're feeding the well of inspiration and just the experiences as well that quite often creating can embody. And I think that's where being an artist in residence is really helpful. So, in a sense, you could almost say you were an artist in residence because you're taken out of your daily activities and you're in a different place, which means that you're experiencing different things and you're looking at things with different eyes, which then means that you might interpret things in a different way. So who knows? Perhaps the light and the light off the ocean in Nova Scotia
Yeah.
will inform a body of work later down the track. Like you say, sometimes it's years later that you might revisit some of those experiences.
Yeah, like I went fishing with my son in Nova Scotia, and my son's uncle, he has like a weir that he builds in the ocean. So we went out on the ocean floor when the flood was out, and he has this weir where there's like thousands of fishes in them, like or hundreds,
Mm.
and we collected some of them and some we threw back into the ocean. And I was just so mesmerized because I've never seen so many fish. And it was like, they literally looked like rainbow sequins, their skin. And it was just like, oh, and I didn't bring my camera because my hands were full of fish juice and we were all from head to toe, just like full of fish juice and uh, smelly fish stuff. And but I was like, oh, I would try to take as many pictures with my eyes,
Mm.
like creating like little memories with my eyes so that I can remember like the feeling. Oh wow, this listening in the sun and who knows? I'm like, it reminded me of sequins, and I was like, oh, maybe I'll do something with a sequence or something shiny at
Yeah.
some point. Who knows?
And then also as well, think of that. You've got the movement of the fish too. So
Yeah,
you've got the sequins and movement. So
yeah.
my goodness, watch this
Who
space.
knows what's going to happen? Yeah, with that. That's right. Yeah.
Oh, I love hearing all of that. And so it's fascinating to hear that you would take pictures with your eyes because quite often I'm the same. Like I'll purposefully leave my phone at home when I'm
Mhm.
doing something just so that I'm having a break. And it's always on those times where it's like, man, I wish I had my phone just so that I could have
Yeah.
a camera to snap all of those pictures just as an aid memoir to,
Hmm.
reflect back onto and all that kind of stuff. Do you find that, so you say you took pictures with your eyes, do you then have to do a quick sketch or write it down or something so that you've captured that in a physical sense?
I do have a little booklet where I write down ideas that sometimes come to me in a vision or like when I see something, and I usually have like maybe I have an installation idea and then I'm scared that I'm going to lose it. So I have these like sketches of ideas. And it's weird because if I look at the sketch, then I remember the whole scene again. It's like this,
Mm.
just like this tiny little anchor that
Mm.
reminds me of the whole scene, which is just, that's what I need, this little tiny anchor. Even if it's a really bad sketch, for some reason, it's like kind of like a portal that brings me back to this. Oh, yeah, that was this big, grand, beautiful thing that I envisioned. And it could be like a stick man figure with like, something very, very rudimentary. And yeah, so that's I do that, and I have this like it's like a bit like my holy Bible of like I think if my apartment would catch fire, I would probably leave everything and just run out with this sketchbook.
Absolutely. Well, I hear you 100%. Being in Australia, the threat of bushfires is, it can be quite a real thing. And one summer it was, the fires got really, really, really close to where we were, to the point where
Oh,
we had to think about taking things from the house and what was important and what was not. And that was my instant go-to, was my visual journals. I'm like, huh, if
yeah,
it, passport, cat, visual journals.
yeah, literally. Oh, yeah. Everything else is replaceable.
That's so true. That's so true. But my mum, because I have quite a lot of visual journals, my mum said, well, there's a lot there. And she said, so if you can think of them once, then you can think of it again. And the idea the second time round will probably be better. So I'm like, oh, okay, I guess I don't have to lift up these big boxes and try and fit them in the car. So
For me, it's exactly the same. I have like so many visual journals. And what I did actually, or what I do like regularly, like maybe every 4 months or so, I go through them and I I transfer the sketches in my journals onto this other little Holy Bible thing where I make like a tiny little version of it. So it's a very thin booklet where basically all my ideas are in, but like in a very condensed form, I would say. Because
wow.
so all the journal work is kind of like in this little tiny booklet, but just in a tiny version of it. So maybe that would be an idea for you to do.
Yes, what a lovely idea. It's, I mean, so great on so many levels because, a number of these sketchbooks now are gathering dust. So it'd be lovely just to look at them and revive some of those ideas. And
Yes, exactly.
yeah, and then have this like little, like you say, your Bible where you've got them. And would you say they're like a thumbnail sketch, something maybe an
Yeah,
inch?
maybe like this big or so,
Mm,
and very rudimentary, like not pretty or anything, just for me to get that link to the bigger version of it.
That makes me wonder, if you're doing that kind of thing, do you find that because you're taking like all of these ideas, which might be like a page in your original journal, and then you're putting them in the Holy Bible of ideas, so they're condensed, do you find that ideas start to merge because you're seeing a few on one page as opposed to one idea per page? Do you find that
um,
that happens?
I find it very interesting when I look back, when I see them all, how they also relate to my daily life, what I'm going
Mm,
through. Like sometimes I can only see that um, from in retrospect when I go back and I'm like, oh yeah, that was a theme. And then this was a year's theme, and this was another year's theme. And I'm also very surprised sometimes of all these ideas that I wrote down. This one made it to a larger scale, let's say, manifestation, but there were so many others which didn't make it to the manifestation yet, or maybe who never will, right? Or which never will make it. But I'm very surprised sometimes which ones actually manifest, like which one actually come to reality, because it's not like the best idea that makes it or so,
hmm.
or not. I would say not the one that is like the that, or I don't know what best even means, but I'm always surprised which one actually does make it, like why did it happen like that?
I'm so curious. So when you say that, because quite often, if you've got a whole lot of different ideas or concepts, and then you're moving forward with one, it's generally because well, from my experience, I feel it's the best. So
Hmm.
for then to turn around and have a look at all of these ideas, do you then feel that maybe because you've worked through that particular idea in its entirety, when you look back at the initial concepts, you might see more in the other prototypes, for example, that haven't quite blossomed into something yet. Is that why you
Yeah,
were saying that?
that could be. Yeah, that could be.
Mm,
Uh, or maybe, yeah, maybe it's just as simple as it wasn't the time for that idea,
mm,
or it maybe I wasn't ready for that idea, like even to be able to realize it. Maybe it still needs some marinating, or I don't know, right?
yeah,
Maybe
absolutely.
I need to grow more, or I need to be more confident to make this happen, or I need to become a different version of myself to make this one happen. Who knows? I don't know
Yeah.
what it is.
I completely can identify and understand that, because sometimes ideas are presented to us and we have to capture them. Otherwise, I think the idea will present themselves to someone else. So,
Yeah, that's
and
what I believe too. Yeah.
yeah, and I've experienced it when an idea has come to me and I'm like, yeah, I'll get to that. Yeah. And
Mm.
then it gets sick of waiting for me to get to it, so it goes and shares itself with someone else. Um, and I find it really fascinating that you're capturing these ideas, and like you say, maybe you're not ready for the idea yet, so you've kind of got to grow into the version you need to be for the idea to happen, which is
Yeah,
lovely.
like for example, like when I was pregnant with my son, which was like 13 years ago, I had these visions of these geometric sculptures, and I wasn't even an artist then. I was just I stopped dancing, working as a dance teacher, and I was pregnant. I was like, okay, I'm going to be like just like a mom for a while, but I didn't even had the idea to even become a visual artist or anything. But all of a sudden, I had these like visions of these sculptures that were like very geometrical, or just I saw these geometrical shapes in my mind. Wasn't even sure if it was a sculpture. It was just shapes.
Mm,
And it took another 9 years or so for me to make my first geometric shape as a sculpture, because I think it was a vision that came to me, but I didn't even know what to do with the vision. Like I wasn't
mm,
even ready to know how I can even make this.
mm.
So who
Oh,
knows, right? Sometimes it is like really like you're tapping maybe into a version of you that doesn't exist yet through a
mm,
vision of
mm.
a piece.
And it's beautiful to hear that you've got these visions and you're realizing them as time progresses, and you've got the opportunity to reflect back and remember what that initial concept was, or that idea, or the shapes, and then it's grown into what it has become today.
Hmm.
It's very beautiful, very poetic.
It's fascinating. It like almost freaks me out because it's like, where do these visions come from? It's
Mm.
magical, you know?
It sounds like you might be very in touch with your creative self for you to have these experiences.
I wonder sometimes, like, I think I'm very visually, like visions come easy to me. Like that I'm closing my eyes and all of a sudden I'm seeing like like a structure, or like a vision of like an already made piece or so.
Mm,
I think that some people are like maybe more, maybe they hear their ideas, or they're like like a word comes to them, or maybe a feeling comes to them. For me, it's really like it's very easy for me to visualize things
yeah.
and to
I,
I
I,
find that very fascinating, like why that is. I think just some people are prone to receive maybe ideas more visually,
mm.
you know.
Would you say, I'm curious, is this something that you have found is kind of been something throughout your life, or is it something that you've maybe cultivated more of an awareness as you've grown up? I
Hmm.
guess
I think it was probably already like there when I was a child, because I remember my teacher in school. She was like our ethics teacher or religious. I don't know if we had religion in school, but she sometimes did like kind of meditations with us where we were like visualizing being in an air balloon and going over the earth and looking at the trees. So like we had to close our eyes and we had to imagine things. And that came very easy to me. I really enjoyed that. And I remember that when I was like maybe 10 or 8 or so that we did
Mm,
that. And for
mm,
some kids, it was really hard. They couldn't focus on it. They were like, oh, what is this? I
mm,
can't imagine it, you know? For
mhm,
me, it was always very easy to just completely dive into this imaginary world. And I think that developed over time. Yeah.
mm, mm. It's completely fascinating, and like you say, creativity comes to us in many different ways. My partner is a musician, and so he's very audio conscious, the spatially,
Mm-hmm.
the sounds, and he sees color in from music.
Yeah.
He sees music in color, which I find totally fascinating, and I just
Beautiful.
would love to be able to envisage that kind of thing. And just looking at the sculpture that you have behind you and how that could maybe translate into a musical piece as well. Like there's lots
Yeah.
of different ways of interpreting creativity too.
I'm actually, it's funny that you say that because I I'm working on a project together with a musician at the moment where we're going to do like, well, it was initially a piece that's maybe made for kids because my art is very colorful and playful. So she's going to create music with it. And I'm going to like, we're going to maybe have like a few installations and then she's going to create the music and the experience with it too that the people will have going maybe from one installation to the next, and then the different installations have different feelings and different musical, like a soundscape, you know.
Fabulous. For people who would like to know more about this, Paula, where or when can they see or experience
Something like
these?
that.
Yeah,
It's kind of like still in the making, so
watch this space.
yeah. It's not
um,
even, yeah, we're maybe next year, maybe in 2026. Yeah.
26, I love it. Oh, how much fun. And I'd love to keep talking with you all day, Paula, but I am very mindful of
Yeah.
your time.
No, thank you so much for taking the time.
And I would love to, before we wrap up, I'd love to hear what you're going to be sharing with us at Making Zen.
Yes, I have a tutorial for a very easy geometric mobile that is completely made out of paper and that can be completely made in unique ways by, you choosing different colors or choosing different shapes. So it's something like a very easy mobile that everybody who has never done anything like it can create.
Mm,
And then I'm doing another for the VIP pass. I'm doing, I would say, a bit like it's maybe a little more complicated version of a Polish paper chandelier, but
mm,
I would say it's also for beginners, like you can do it. And it's also, yeah, like a kinetic mobile made out of straw and paper, and yeah,
yeah.
and paper flowers in that are like made in a specific way, like how the Polish people actually, it's like a Polish tradition to make these paper flowers in a certain way.
Oh, so beautiful. I'm so excited. I can't wait to give it a go.
Yeah,
And
I'm
having
so excited too.
exactly, and to kind of go full circle to take it back to where we were talking about first thing about meeting the person and the artist and the artwork. I'm really excited to see what people take away from learning how to make the paper chandeliers or mobiles that you teach, and then they might be inspired by some music or some dance, like what you were talking about, which is how you kind of found your way to this way of creating. It's been so fabulous learning more about you.
Thank you so much, Kate.
Thank you for joining me in this creative journey. If you've enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and share it with your friends. And if you'd like to learn more about Making Zen, please check out the links below where you can find out all about the workshops, creativity, community, and all that kind of good stuff. Wishing you many happy hours of stitching.